Sooner Nation, welcome into Sooner Spotlight, your all-access pass on all things Oklahoma Sooners athletics. I'm your host, Josh Mahler. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Real Josh Mahler. That's Mahler. For all updates on the show, go follow me over there. We are a new, kind of smaller production right now, so we don't feel like putting all the effort into making a completely new social media page just yet. Let's get a following first. So go follow me over on Twitter. That's where you can find all the updates for this show. Since we are a new production, we want you to help us out by giving us a like. Just hit that like button real quick. That's no effort at all. Comment down below. Hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell if you would like to be notified anytime that we release new content for you regarding the Oklahoma Sooners. We are going to get into all kinds of Oklahoma Sooners athletics, but of course, as we know, Oklahoma Sooners, we know that we have to first talk about college football. That is first and foremost in the Sooner Nation. But since we are a new production, we're also opening it up as well to all of you as listeners for ways to stand out from the rest. If there's something that you'd like to hear from a Sooner sports show that you don't hear from maybe your favorite Sooner sports show, go ahead and reach out to me and let me know what we could do different for you. Either drop it down in the comments or reach out to me, DM me on X, formerly known as Twitter. I'm always going to call it Twitter. Or you can email us at SoonerSpotlightPod@gmail.com. That's SoonerSpotlightPod@gmail.com. We're going to go through the Sooners win total projections today because a lot of Sooner fans are pretty irritated with the way that Vegas has projected the Oklahoma Sooners going into their first season into the SEC. And it does seem unfair when you consider where Oklahoma has come from, of course, being under Lincoln Riley, being in the national spotlight time and time again, making it to the college football playoff several times. And then, of course, Brent Venables takes over one bad season. And we can blame that on a lot of things. It was a rebuild year, and he had to completely rebuild from the ground up with a completely new system, specifically on defense. So, there was a lot of things going into that first season where we only won 6 games. And then, of course, right after that season, he turns it around and goes straight to 10 wins. As Oklahoma fans, we understand how good this team really is and how far they've come, especially when we go back to just a couple of seasons ago and understanding the big adjustment and then the big jump that they took from 6 wins to 10 wins with really the exact same team doing that. This is a totally different team than I think the media understands, but that's what we're here for. We're going to talk about this, and I'll try to give an explanation to Sooner fans, even though I'm right with you. I think that 7.5 is very low, but right now Vegas has the Oklahoma Sooners at 7.5 wins on the season. That means they only project Oklahoma to have 7 or 8 wins, and so they pick right in the middle for that betting line between the two. So you look at 7.5, and that feels like such disrespect because, again, we're the Oklahoma Sooners. We are in the national spotlight every single season. Even last year, there was a moment where we thought for sure we had hopes of a college football playoff run. We had hopes of course, winning the Big 12 for the last year that we were there. But looking at that 7.5 win total projection, I'll kind of explain why it is that way. And I'm sure some of you probably already understand, but let's get into it. Is it fair for the Oklahoma Sooners to be kind of disrespected a little bit? I think we can definitely call it disrespect. I think a lot of people, specifically in the media, don't really understand this Oklahoma Sooners squad and how good they really are. But does it feel like disrespect to you as a Sooner fan? Because I know I definitely take it that way. But looking at it, which games do I feel confident? Which games should we feel confident that we can win? I'm just going to walk through, and I know I already did a kind of a breakdown of each team, so I'm just going to do a very brief walkthrough of this schedule to kind of take a deep dive into it. First, of course, starting off with Temple, Houston, and Tulane, we should be working out the kinks in these games and getting ready for SEC play. I expect these 3 to be wins. I think every Sooners fan, even people in the media, should expect Oklahoma to win these first 3 games. These first 3 non-conference games, they should be easy enough. I'm not going to say they're cupcakes because I think Houston and Tulane will show us some things that we will want to work on going into SEC play. But first SEC game at home against Tennessee, this is one that really can't be chalked up as a win if we're being honest with ourselves. But us as Sooner fans, we know that we can pull it off. We know that we can win this one, but we'll mark it as a 50-50 game right now. You can't mark that as a win. Now, Auburn in Jordan-Hare, Oklahoma is currently, in my opinion, a better team than Auburn. When you look at the roster, when you look at what they had put together last year, I just feel like Oklahoma is deeper across the board than Auburn. I think Auburn stands out in a couple of position groups, and I think Hugh Freeze has that entire team on a roll, and I think they're going places, and I'm really excited to see where Hugh Freeze takes Auburn. But in my opinion, Auburn can't be just chalked up as a win, even though I do think that we should be able to win this game, because Jordan-Hare. OU fans don't really understand Jordan-Hare or the atmosphere there at Jordan-Hare. To understand that atmosphere, we've never played in Jordan-Hare. We've never played Auburn at Auburn. They've never played in Norman. The only two times that we've ever met with Auburn was in 1972 and 2017, both in the Sugar Bowl. So this is going to be a completely different atmosphere. It's the first time that we're going to experience this SEC atmosphere being in the SEC. Of course, I think just a few years ago, seems like a couple of years ago, we were just in Knoxville, kind of experiencing that. That was definitely big, but I think this team is better than that Tennessee team was. And so, looking at this, I think this is a very difficult game because of the atmosphere. If this was in Oklahoma, I think I would just mark this one as I expect to win it, because I just think we're just a little bit better. But that atmosphere is weird, and Auburn fans know it. SEC fans know it. SEC players especially know it. So it's going to be interesting, to say the least. Definitely an atmosphere to go and to experience this year if you're looking to travel as an Oklahoma fan. I will definitely be there. Now, going to Texas in Dallas for the Red River rivalry. We should be able to beat Texas the same way that we did last year. In my opinion, I think there's no reason for us not to be able to go into that game and expect to win that game in Dallas the way that we did a season ago. They went and upgraded some positions that they needed to fill, but so did we. And I think we did just as good at attacking the transfer portal in areas that we needed, specifically the offensive line. And then if we've even got a couple of extra attacks for the wide receiver core / tight ends that we can look at. So both teams, when you look at it, both teams I think look better on paper than they did a season ago, in my opinion. I think when you look on paper before the season ever starts, I think both these teams look better than they did last year at this time. So I think that's something to take a look at. Although I'm predicting Oklahoma to win this game, and I think Oklahoma does end up winning the Red River rivalry and pulling home that golden hat, it's just not one that we can chalk up on the schedule as a win, unfortunately. I'm right there with you, Oklahoma fans, horns down, but stay with me, okay? We're getting through this. South Carolina in Norman, finally an SEC opponent that I think Oklahoma is better than, and we get them at home. I feel like we should be able to chalk this one up as a win. If we're chalking them up, this is one that we can mark down on the schedule. We've got to win here, South Carolina in Norman. The Gamecocks really don't scare me. I think they lost two of their best players. We've talked about that with Spencer Rattler and Xavier Legette. So I think this roster, this team, this coaching staff, they don't really scare me a whole lot when I look at them, especially coming into Norman. So I feel like this is a game that Oklahoma should win. All right, this is one of those that I feel like you have to chalk that one up. Now, Ole Miss in Oxford, Mississippi. Well, again, I think Oklahoma has a chance to pull off a win here, but this isn't one that I would mark down as a win. And I hope you guys can understand where I'm coming from when I say this, trying to be reasonable with this preseason and looking forward without knowing either of these two teams. This is one that I just really can't mark down as a win on the schedule. There are some concerns going into this game because I know how good Ole Miss is projected to be going into this season by a lot of experts. And really, the more that I hear about Ole Miss, the more I understand about that, about how good they can be. Maybe by this point in the season, when we get there, when we're going to Ole Miss, we can feel a lot more confident about going into Oxford and walking away with the win. But it isn't an easy one right now pre-season. So, again, hang with me. Next game is going to, we're going to have Maine come to Norman. Well, I mean, if we're not chalking this one up as a win, I quit. I'm done with this. So Maine, absolutely a win. Now we have Missouri in Columbia. I understand why the media is so high on Mizzou this year. I really do. I totally understand it. They showed a lot of promise last year. They hung tight with some really good teams. They hung tight with teams like LSU. They had a really big win against K-State early in the season with a crazy good field goal. Luther Burden is great. Brady Cook is coming back. They return a lot of other talent and very important talent. And they even brought some new talent into the mix. But I still just feel like Oklahoma is better than them overall. I think Oklahoma is just the better team. I think we have the better roster. I think we have the better coaching staff. think we have the better resources. There's just no reason for me to look at this game not expecting Oklahoma to come out with a win. So I think it's going to be a battle. Most likely will be a battle in Columbia. Don't get me wrong. Don't have me on the record saying I think you can chalk this one up, no problem. But I do think we can mark it down as an expectation to win this game in Mizzou. Now we get Alabama at home. This is a very difficult one for me because we haven't seen a Kalen DeBoer team. And you look at this, we have yet to see any sign that Alabama will be the dominant force that they were under Nick Saban. But we've also not seen a reason to look at them and believe that they won't be just as good or at least very close to it. So this is another game that I truly believe that Oklahoma wins. I think Oklahoma can win this game, but obviously you can't expect the odds to be heavily in our favor against the Tide. And again, Kalen DeBoer is a very good coach. He was given a very good team, so why wouldn't they be a really good team going into this season? Last game of the season, LSU in Death Valley. This, again, is another game that I have no reason to believe that we couldn't pull off the victory. But one thing concerns me about this, and it's LSU under Brian Kelly and how good they are in the end of the season because they get very hot. They're one of those teams that heats up the most at the end of the season. Add that on top of the environment in Baton Rouge, this smells like a very tough game. It smells like a game that is going to come down to the wire. It's going to be probably a higher scoring game than we would like to see, especially with our defense. And looking at this, I don't know because, again, we've talked about Brian Kelly expects his defense to be better. We don't know yet. We haven't seen them on the field. I'd really have to see it to believe it because they were atrocious last year. So looking at this one, I do think that each team could have a lot riding on this game. This could be a really big game with a lot of implications. But I just can't give this one to the Sooners just yet. So how many can we chalk up on the schedule as games that we fully expect the Sooners should absolutely be able to win? I have 6. I'll count them off for you. I have Temple, Houston, Tulane, the 3 games in the beginning of the season. And then you've got South Carolina, Maine, and Mizzou. I think those are 6 games that I give Oklahoma, and I'm marking them down on the schedule as I expect to win those games. So when we look back at the 7.5 for Vegas, they have to take that into effect. There's 6 games, whichever ones they might be. They may not be the same ones that I have marked down, but there's 6 games that you would expect Oklahoma to win for sure. And then you add on top of that, you look at the other games, and we've got to win at least 1 or 2 unexpected games, right? That's what one would expect. If Oklahoma is as good as I believe they are going to be this season, I have full confidence that we win these 6 games. Now, Oklahoma has lost games that they shouldn't have in the past. You go to just last year, we lost the Bedlam game, and we also lost Kansas, 2 kind of hard-fought games against teams that were good teams. I don't want to take that away from them at all. I think Oklahoma State and Kansas were both good teams last year. But we still should have won those games, even going back before. K-State's been one of those teams. Iowa State's been one of those teams to upset the Sooners when they really shouldn't have been upset. So I bring this up just because you expect your team to win a game. That doesn't mean that they're always going to win the games that you expect them to because it's college football. Any given Saturday. Yeah, this is literally something that we talk about all the time throughout college football season. Now, games that I think Oklahoma has a very good shot of pulling off and a very good opportunity to win. I'm going to start off with Tennessee. first SEC game at home. I think this one, because it's at home, I have faith in this defense to stand up against a very tricky offense that Josh Heupel is going to walk in there with. I also think that Jackson Arnold is flying under the radar right now. I don't think a lot of people, at least in the media, I don't think a lot of people understand how good he can be. And I don't think they understand how good that we expect him to be. So I trust what we're hearing out of the Oklahoma camps right now, out of the Oklahoma personnel and the coaching staffs, that Jackson Arnold is going to be ready to go by the time we get through those first 3 games, working out whatever kinks that we have to work out with him. And going forward in the season, I really fully believe that Jackson Arnold is going to be a very good quarterback for Oklahoma. And so overall, I believe this offense is going to look pretty solid and be able to move the ball just fine, especially with him at quarterback. Going on to Auburn, I respect the hell out of Auburn and Hugh Freeze. I think the Auburn Tigers are an underrated team this season that just fell down with a very tough schedule, much like our Sooners. So I think Auburn and Oklahoma are kind of in the same boat where they're both underrated teams with a very hard schedule. The reason why I believe that we could pull this game off is because I think our defense can make their offense pay, and I think they can get a couple of turnovers that put us ahead. Get Peyton Thorne, get to him and force him to make a bad decision. I think that's what we have to do, and I think we have the defense to be able to do that. I think we have the secondary this year that has been the best secondary that I think we've seen since probably 2005, 2008 era, right in that range. So I really believe that we can beat Auburn if we can force that. They have a tough defense as well, so we're going to have to expect to play very good offense. But like I said, I think with Jackson Arnold, I think he's going under the radar. And another thing, I think Oklahoma has one of the best wide receiver cores in all of college football this year. I don't see many wide receiving cores that have the talent that I expect Oklahoma to have this season. So that's going to make it a lot easier for our offense to move the ball when we need to. The third game that I think Oklahoma has a very good shot to win is Texas. Like I said, we have upgraded our team in many ways, and this rivalry has been owned by the Sooners in the last decade, even going back to 2000. Oklahoma has won 7 of the last 10. I mean, we are the better team, and I think Texas gets a lot more hype going into the SEC because of recency bias and understanding that they just made the playoffs, with people not understanding that Oklahoma has been there several times. They've won the Big 12, I believe, 10 more times than Texas has. Oklahoma has owned the Big 12. They've been on the national spotlight for much more than Texas has in the last decade. So I truly believe that because of the way that we've upgraded our team, I believe we're a better team than we were last year. We just saw what we did last year and how we were able to play more physical for them. If we just want that golden hat more and we play more physical than Texas, like we saw last year, the way that you see them disrupting Quinn Ewers, the way that they're getting in the backfield and stopping the run, and that fourth and goal, that first, second, third, and fourth and goal from the 1-yard line that we got to see a season ago in the Red River rivalry, this is why I believe that Oklahoma can do it again. We just saw it last season. Why not again this season? I think we can pull this game off. Next is Alabama. We haven't seen a Kalen DeBoer-led Alabama team yet, so this is very hard to call, and I'm going to reiterate that many times. But maybe I'm wrong, and they're going to be just as dominant as they have been in the past under Nick Saban. Maybe that's the case. But after all, as I've said in the past, Kalen DeBoer is a winning a winning coach, but we have also beaten a Nick Saban-led Alabama team with a much less talented roster, in my opinion. I think when you back up to the Sugar Bowl when we beat them, I believe that was 2014, if memory serves me correctly. I might be wrong on the date. But, when we've seen Oklahoma be able to beat this unstoppable Alabama team in the past. And of course, the last time that we met with them didn't go to our favor, didn't lean in our favor, and it really didn't go the way that we wanted. But I don't think that Oklahoma is going to get outmatched the way that we have in the past. When we talk about just a few seasons ago when we saw them in the playoffs. So ultimately, this is a home game. Welcome to Norman is going to be a phrase that is going to haunt a lot of teams in the SEC, because I have full faith in the Oklahoma Sooners finding their place in the SEC and really kind of marking their spot, marking their territory in the SEC. So I do believe that they're going to find a way to show the SEC that we belong. So I think they're going to hear "Welcome to Norman," and it's going to haunt them and remind them of how nice Oklahoma fans can be and how polite and welcoming Sooner Nation can be. But then it's also going to make them remember that how electrifying that atmosphere can be and how passionate our fan base is about our team. So I think that we can beat Alabama, and I don't know what to expect from their team right now. So that's definitely one that I think we have a shot. Now, teams that I don't know if we will beat, it's the two that I left off that list. Starting off with Ole Miss, experts all over the media landscape are talking them up. And again, the more I hear the explanations of why they're talking up Ole Miss, the more I kind of agree with them and the more I understand why they're high on Ole Miss. This is definitely a chance for us to win. This is definitely a game that we have a very good chance to go in there and win if we play the right kind of ball. But, when we look at this, going into Oxford, it just seems like a very difficult task right now at this point in the season where we're in the preseason. We're not even to August yet talking about this. So it's more on the preseason hype stage. I have a hard time seeing us going into Oxford on a road game with this talented of a team, with Lane Kiffin trying to bring his team to a national championship. And they have a lot riding on this season. I think this feels like a do-or-die kind of season for Ole Miss. That's what it feels like, the energy that we're getting from them right now. So I think Ole Miss is going to be a very difficult one, and I don't know if we're going to beat Ole Miss. The other one being LSU. I mean, have you seen how electrifying Death Valley can be? Have you seen how loud it can be? Even if you're watching it on TV, there's been times where I can recall watching games in Death Valley at LSU in Baton Rouge, and you can see the vibrations in the camera from how loud it is. So, I mean, looking at LSU, this is going to be Thanksgiving weekend. It's going to be an evening or a night game. I mean, you look at this, there's going to be over 92,000 fans there screaming at the top of their lungs. I have a hard time seeing, at this point, Oklahoma walking into Death Valley and pulling off the win. But maybe my mind will be changed down the road, and I really hope it is. Maybe LSU isn't as good as we're projecting them to be. Maybe their offense takes a step down since they don't have Jaden Daniels. They have Garrett Nussmeier stepping in at quarterback. So maybe their offense isn't going to be as good, and we can stop them very easily. And of course, we know what we are expecting from their defense. Maybe that's better than what we were expecting, but still, maybe we just look like a much better team than them towards the end of the season, and we walk into Death Valley and we pull off the win. Those are just the two teams that I have a hard time right now where I stand in the preseason being able to pull off the victory. So looking at it right now, like I said, I see 6 for sure wins, and I see 3 to 4 that we can very, very well pull off. I think there's a very clear path for us to pull off these wins. So walking through this, again, going back to that 7.5, do I think that's disrespectful towards Oklahoma? Yes and no, because you have to understand where Vegas is coming from. If they only see 6 games, they have to put that mark right around that 6 games that they're going to give Oklahoma, and they're going to understand that Oklahoma is probably going to have 1 or 2 games that they weren't expected to have won. So when you look at Vegas odds, I think this is the right line, because we have to understand now. Texas, on the other hand, they're number 2 in odds to win the SEC. So Texas has a lot higher expectations, but you also have to look at their schedule compared to ours. They go to Michigan and they go to they go to Georgia. If memory serves me correctly, they're on the road to Georgia. So there's 2 very tough teams in there. The rest of them are very controllable games that they can pull out with a win, much like maybe what we were talking about with Mizzou, that kind of a feel to them, or even South Carolina, where we really should be able to win. That's Texas's schedule. So, I mean, they have a much easier schedule. They got the better luck of the draw when going into the SEC. So, Sooner fans, I understand the frustration with this. I do think we are going to hit the over. I think 8 games is my minimum for Oklahoma. I would really want for 10. I would settle with 9 this year. This year, we can settle with that. Of course, we're always striving and we're always hoping for a national championship, right? So let's keep on cheering on the Sooners. And who knows, maybe this team is far better than even I'm expecting. And we end up going through there and we do win a national championship. That's dreaming. That's dreaming. But you know what? We're allowed to dream because it's not even August yet. So let's do it. Let's dream all we can. But hopefully this kind of gives you guys a breakdown of why Vegas would have given Oklahoma the odds of only 7.5 wins. You know, we're expecting them to win only 7 or 8. Maybe that kind of explains it a little better to you. You don't have to be happy with it. I'm not happy with it. I want 10 wins. I want 11 wins. I want 12 wins. Let's go win a national championship. But, you know, we have to be reasonable. We have to be realistic with our expectations. If you want to hear, if you're coming here to hear what you want to hear, this might not be the show for you. If you're coming here to hear reasonable expectations, reasonable predictions, reasonable previews on Oklahoma athletics, this is the podcast for you. But thank you so much for tuning in. Again, we are a new production, so please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and please comment down below. That's the best way to help us beat the algorithm and jump into other Sooner fans' inboxes, into their searching pages, whatever you call that on YouTube. But I thank you all so much for all the support so far. We're going to get further into this. Again, you can follow me over on X, formerly known as Twitter. That's at Real Josh Mahler. At Real Josh, Mahler. That's how you spell my last name. But I thank you all so much for tuning in. I'll catch you next time, Sooner Nation.